Friday, 2:12 p.m. I just topped off my coffee and was halfway through sanding the legs of an old cedar bench when the phone buzzed. One message from Marlene. Back on Monday, I'll explain later. That was it. No greeting, no love you. Just 7 words that reeked of rushed guilt wrapped in casual indifference. I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. She'd left at 7 a.m., tossing a duffel in the back seat, saying she was headed to her sister's. Said they needed a girl reset weekend. Wine, old movies, overpriced candles, you know the script. But her eyes hadn't met mine. She mumbled. She flinched when I asked which sister. She has 2 and neither likes her enough to spend 48 hours with her unless there's an inheritance involved. I asked if she wanted me to drive her. She laughed. You'd be bored to tears, she said, tossing her hair and jangling the car keys like I was her Uber driver, not her husband of 22 years. Now, hours later, she sends this limp digital excuse for honesty. I stared at that message for a solid minute before typing a reply. Take your time. Then I toggled off read receipts. Not that she'd notice. She stopped checking years ago. Stopped replying in full sentences too, come to think of it. I set the phone face down on the workbench. My hands didn't shake. They just slowed. That's when I remembered the tablet. Her old one. Navy case, cracked corner, always jammed into the living room drawer below the takeout menus and expired coupons. She'd upgraded months ago, but never factory reset the old one. Said she'd use it as a backup, but never did. I walked into the house, each step suddenly louder against the hardwood. I opened the drawer. Still there, still no lock, still synced. See, Marlene always thought she was the smarter one. Tech savvy, slick. I'd let her believe that. Her programmed the smart thermostat and bragged to the neighbors about our new security system, the one I installed. I tapped the screen. It lit up. Photos. Messages, cloud accounts, not a fortress. A barn door swinging in the wind, and the funny thing, she wasn't even careful. She just thought I wouldn't look, that I was too slow, too old, too soft. She forgot I used to troubleshoot military-grade electronics in a snowstorm, on live airfields under pressure. I've stitched together the guts of more broken systems than she's owned handbags. She forgot what I used to be, and maybe that's my fault. I opened the Messages app, not hers. The group threads, buried in between recipes and endless exchanges about wine brands and Pilates instructors. There it was. A name. It popped up more than once. Kyle. That stopped me. Kyle wasn't just some name. He was my former apprentice on base. 20 years younger. Bright, fast-talking, eager to please, used to call me sir even after I told him to cut it out. He'd sit with me in the mess hall when nobody else did. Told me I was the closest thing to a father figure he ever had. I once lent him $5,000 to keep his lights on, no contract, just trust. Marlene called him a nice guy when we ran into him at the grocery store last year. I remember how she touched her hair and laughed too loudly at his jokes. I remember thinking, odd. Now I saw the same name with emojis, heart reacts, flirty banter, GPS pins. One message from him, dated just yesterday. I booked the cabin. Bring the black dress. That sentence alone told me everything. No need to scream, no need to call. She had already confessed. She just didn't know it. I kept scrolling. There were photos too. No, nothing X-rated, nothing obvious. But the context was louder than skin. A glass of wine between their 2 phones on a table. A mirror selfie where her necklace was twisted the way it only ever got when she was in a rush. That same necklace I gave her on our 15th. She wore it now for him. And that's the thing about betrayal. It's never the grand gestures. It's not the lipstick on the collar. It's the silence, the subtle adjustments, the extra effort in places they think you don't notice. The moment I saw his name, I knew. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was a routine, a rerun, a schedule. I closed the tablet. My fingers didn't fumble. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't going to throw things or break down. That would have given her too much power. No, I had something else in mind. Something quieter, something she wouldn't see coming because she never really saw me to begin with. And before I keep going, yeah, I know more than 90% of you reading this aren't subscribed, but if you're here reading this far, you should be. Helps the team bring more of these to life, and trust me, it only gets better from here. Because after I closed that tablet, I walked back to the bench, sipped my coffee, and started a new list in my head. Not of groceries, not of chores, a list of everything she didn't think I'd notice. And at the top of that list, A man who once called me mentor. She'd forgotten the sink was still active, or maybe she thought I was too checked out to ever look. But the tablet, her dusty, half-dead, stuck-in-the-drawer tablet, was still a living, breathing witness. And man, it didn't hold back. Group texts lit up first, mostly harmless at a glance, chatter from her Pilates circle, recipes, gossip about someone's husband growing a ponytail. I scanned past it until something strange caught my eye. Screenshots. She'd saved images from another app, not for reference, but to hide them from deletion elsewhere. Screenshots of texts with a contact labeled Kyle, no emoji, no last name, but context gave him away. Kyle. The name kept sliding into threads like a weed in concrete. Not loud, just frequent. In the same way a scratch becomes unbearable when you realize it's from termites. I opened one thread. Kyle, you should have seen your face when I said Mrs. Daniels. Thought you were gonna melt. Marlene. Shut up, you're awful. I was trying to be good. Kyle, I like you better bad. I didn't blink, I just kept scrolling. Another. Kyle, traffic sucks. Be there in 20, bring wine if you beat me there. Marlene, already packed. Then voice memos. I knew better than to open them all. Some were just seconds of wind, muffled words, but one started with her humming, then laughter, her laugh, the one I hadn't heard in months. Not the polite chuckle she gave me over dinner, but the real one, the one that made her choke on her own breath. It used to be mine. You always smell like cedar and chaos, she whispered in the memo. He laughed. That's better than Jet A and sarcasm like your husband. I froze. Cedar and chaos. That's what she used to say about me. When I'd come in from the shop, covered in sawdust or grease, grinning like an idiot holding 2 beers in one hand. That exact phrase. She repurposed it, like I was the practice run. And then came Thursday's message. Kyle, I booked the cabin. Bring the black dress. My brain didn't process it all at once. It came in pulses. The cabin, he used to brag about that place. A rental near the lakes. Said it was perfect when the world got too loud. He once invited me and Marlene for a weekend there, back when it still seemed like he respected boundaries. I declined. She insisted we should have gone, said we needed to get away. Now I saw what she meant. I closed the message thread and opened the photos. They weren't bed tapes, nothing explicit, just enough to suffocate. A coffee mug on a table I didn't recognize. Her legs stretched across a couch, the hem of a red dress I'd never seen in our house. A blurry shot of Kyle's foot beside hers. Bare, casual, domestic. There were selfies too, the ones she never posted anywhere. She'd smile different in those, not the tilted head, Instagram-ready one she used with me. No, these were softer, private, just for him kind of smiles. One photo caught me, her wrist in the foreground wearing my watch. My old Seiko, I gave it to her one day when hers died during a hike. She said she liked the way it made her feel secure. Now it was just a prop in someone else's story. I didn't throw the tablet, didn't scream. I stood up, walked to the sink, and rinsed my hands like I touched something dirty. This wasn't just betrayal. It was repetition, patterned deceit. She reused words, places, even objects, like we were rehearsals for her new act, like she was borrowing pieces of our life and stitching them into a better one with someone who used to call me boss. You think you'd feel fire in a moment like this? Rage, but for me, it was cold, clinical, like flipping a circuit breaker. Something went off, and I knew it wasn't ever going back on. I pulled out a legal pad, wrote down, tablet synced, Kyle confirmed. Cabin equals same as Tweetu invite. Black dress equals check bag. Then I opened the shared GPS app she forgot we linked after a road trip 3 years ago. She never unshared her location. I zoomed in. Her car wasn't anywhere near her sister's house. No, she was already in the mountains, the Lake District, right around the coordinates. Kyle once texted me when I covered his shift and he owed me a weekend beer. I didn't text her, I didn't call. Instead, I opened my contacts and tapped Natalie, my niece. Smart, paralegal, razor sharp when she needs to be. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, Uncle D, everything okay? I looked out the window. Blue sky, birds on the feeder, completely calm. Yeah, I said. I just sent you something. Need you to track it quietly. A pause. You in trouble? Not yet. And I hung up. Because if Kyle wanted to play with my memories and Marlene wanted to borrow from our past to dress up her secret weekend, fine. They'd forgotten who helped build their foundations, who held Kyle's hand through his first post-deployment panic attack, who kept Marlene out of debt during the recession. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to disassemble. Like every burnt-out circuit and jammed turbine I ever repaired, I was going to strip this down to every screw, and they wouldn't even smell the smoke until it was already ash. The house was silent in the way only betrayal can make it, like even the air was holding its breath. I moved through the hallway slowly, not out of hesitation but because I was cataloging everything now, the faint citrus scent still lingering from her hairspray that morning, the pair of earrings left on the kitchen counter like a breadcrumb trail to her carelessness, a coffee mug in the sink with lipstick not mine, not from today, little things, nothing dramatic, nothing a court would care about, but enough for me. In the garage, her side was empty. She'd taken the Nissan, her girl weekend car, as she used to call it. Small, reliable, forgettable, perfect for driving to places she wasn't supposed to be without drawing attention. My truck sat quietly in its space as if waiting for orders. I unlocked the center console and pulled out my old field logbook. Not because I needed to write anything yet, but because holding it reminded me what I used to be. Methodical, disciplined, the kind of man who didn't flinch in storms. The kind of man Kyle once asked to be mentored by. I went back inside and grabbed the laptop. Years ago, after one too many fights about forgotten groceries and you never told me you were picking up dry cleaning, Marlene suggested we share location tracking. Just for fun, she said. Transparency is healthy. I'd agreed, and she forgot. I didn't. The app was still there, tucked into a folder with our names on it like a joke. One tap, and there she was, a pulsing blue dot, not even hiding, not near her sister's place in Trenton, not anywhere near a town, really. She was 2 hours north, nestled deep in the pine country near Clearbrook Ridge, exactly where Kyle had mentioned during one of our last beers before I retired. Perfect little cabins up there, he'd said, staring into his glass. Secluded, like the world doesn't exist. I zoomed in. The cabin had a name, Mosslight Retreat. I Googled it. Rustic charm, wood-burning stoves, no front desk, no cameras, just trees and time. I screen captured the GPS logs, the route and the current position, time-stamped, coordinates clear. Then I opened my messages and tapped Natalie's name. She was my brother's daughter. 28, sharp as a box cutter, working her way up at a mid-tier firm in the city and always hungry for a real case to sink her teeth into. She'd helped me once when I had a title transfer issue, and she solved it faster than the DMV could say, not our department. I texted her 2 things. Me. Track this. Quietly. Attachment. GPS logs. Cabin info. Marlene's pinned location. Follow up. Need a paper trail. And a silence clause. She responded within 60 seconds. Natalie. Got it. Who's the target? I stared at the blinking cursor before typing. Me, both of them. Because yeah, this wasn't just about her. Marlene played the lead, but Kyle was in the chorus. And maybe he thought he was the clever one, sliding in through the back door of my life, smiling, complimenting my tools, asking if I'd read his resume before sending it to the colonel for referrals, sitting at my dinner table asking for seconds while staring at my wife too long. I remembered his cologne, a synthetic sharp scent, too youthful. I smelled it once in our hallway a month ago and chalked it up to paranoia. Now I knew better. Natalie replied again. Natalie, building a timeline. Do you want to be mentioned? Me, not yet, just the facts. Because the beauty of betrayal is that it always leaves fingerprints. You just have to know where to dust. The net wasn't fully cast yet, but the threads were pulling taut. I printed the route, marked the timestamp. Then I walked outside. Our driveway was long, gravel, weeds growing through the sides. Marlene always said we should get it paved, but I liked the sound of tires on stone. It let you know when someone was coming or going. I stood at the edge listening, not a sound, no echo of tires, no footprints. But in my mind, I heard them. Her car reversing that morning. The same car parked now outside a cabin where she thought no one could see her. But I saw. She always thought I was the one fading, that I was the man who retired not just from work, but from himself, the man who smiled too much, nodded too often, and needed help turning on the Bluetooth in the car. What she didn't know is I had been cataloging things for months, Not out of suspicion, but because I had that mechanic's tick: observe before you act. Don't pull the machine apart until you've mapped the entire system. No guesses, no assumptions, just patterns. And now I had them. I stepped back inside, sat down, and started a new folder on my laptop. Title: Monday, because she said she'd be back Monday. She said she'd explain later, but by then, the explanation would be irrelevant. All that would be left were facts and silence, and whatever I decided to do next. I waited until Saturday morning. I didn't sleep in, didn't stew in the dark like some jilted soap opera husband. I shaved, brewed coffee, ate my eggs with pepper, not salt, because she always said too much sodium would kill me, and frankly, that advice had lost its weight. Then I drove, 2 hours west, past the old missile silos and flat towns with more grain silos than people. There was something poetic about the silence on that road. The same road I used to take with Kyle when we were both stationed under Mercer. He'd ride shotgun, fiddling with the radio, asking dumb questions about life and wiring. Said I was the most stable person he knew. The irony hit like a slow knife now. I parked in front of a modest red brick ranch with a flagpole out front and a metal eagle rusting over the garage. The mailbox still said Mercer, bold black letters, because the colonel didn't retire from standards, just service. I knocked once, the door opened before my knuckles hit again. He was exactly as I remembered him. Thick shoulders, skin like worn leather, gray crew cut that refused to thin, and a stare that could straighten a crooked spine. He wore a U.S. Air Force t-shirt that had seen more honest sweat than any gym bro's entire wardrobe. "Dan," he said, voice flat but not cold, "you look like hell." "Thanks," I said, stepping in. New cologne, desperation and betrayal. He cracked half a grin. "So you finally figured it out." I stopped. "Wait, what?" He motioned toward the living room. We sat. He poured coffee without asking. Still remembered how I took it. Black, no frills. "I didn't want to be the one to say anything," he began. "Didn't have proof, just gut. You remember that bar night 2 years ago when you, me, and Kyle went out after the range tests?" I nodded slowly. He was too friendly with your wife, not disrespectful, just familiar, like he already knew her tastes. I said nothing. "Didn't sit right with me," Mercer continued. "Figured you'd see it, but you didn't. You were content." That word stung more than I expected. I reached into my satchel and pulled out the envelope. Thick, sealed, labeled in my clean print handwriting. Kyle P. Unauthorized Operations. He raised an eyebrow. "Still using my name for job referrals?" I asked. Mercer exhaled slowly through his nose. "He applied again last week. Tried using your name, actually. Said you'd personally endorse him. That's what triggered me." I slid the envelope across the coffee table. Inside, screenshots, dates, photos, GPS coordinates, even a printout of Marlene's selfie that had automatically synced to the shared cloud, the one she took near the lake, the one where you could see the reflection of Kyle's phone in her sunglasses if you looked close enough. "Jesus," he muttered, flipping through. "I need one more favor," I said flatly. He looked up. "I'm not asking for blood. I want file history. Copies of any application he's made under your recommendation or mine. Anything with my name attached. I want to know what else he's leveraged. Quietly. No blacklists, no drama, just paper." He studied me. "This about your pride?" "No," I said. "It's about precision." Mercer nodded. "You got it." He stood up, disappeared into his back room, his paper tomb, as he called it. That man never digitized a damn thing in his life. Kept hard copies of every application, every report, every disciplinary flag. While he was gone, I looked around. His living room was exactly how a military retiree would keep it. Framed medals, a shadow box, a photo of him with a younger version of me, grinning in a flight line hangar with engine grease on our sleeves, and in the background of that photo, Kyle. I remember the day it was taken. Kyle had just passed a maintenance cert. No one thought he'd earn that soon. I vouched for him. Mercer signed off based on my word. How many things had I unwittingly handed him? Mercer returned with the folder. "You didn't hear this from me, but he's applied to at least 3 civilian contractor firms in the last year. Every time name-dropped you, told one recruiter you were his uncle." "Cute," I said. "Guess betrayal skips the paperwork." We shook hands. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, his tone lower. "No," I said, "but I'm sure I'm awake now." He didn't press. Military men know when not to pry. I left that house with two things: evidence of Kyle's ambition and proof that Marlene wasn't just betraying a marriage. She was betraying a network. See, I wasn't a jealous man. I didn't care about the intimacy, not in the way people assume. I cared about trust, about the fact that while I was fixing the foundation of this life, they were remodeling the upstairs in secret. But now I had witnesses. I had dates. And soon I'd have leverage, not because I wanted to burn them, because I wanted them to watch themselves collapse under their own weight. And I wasn't going to make a single noise while it happened. I woke before dawn Sunday, not because of nerves or guilt, those were gone, stripped away like dead paint, but because I had work to do. The house was silent, too silent. Marlene always filled it with something. Her morning show, the whir of her hairdryer, Spotify playlists named things like Sunday rituals or self-care sleigh. Now it was just me, the ticking kitchen clock, and the hum of the printer warming up. I laid out every sheet of evidence on the dining room table like blueprints. GPS logs, marked, dated, cross-referenced with her known alibis. Her Friday trip north, the stop she made at a gas station 30 miles away from her sister's house, the exact timestamp where her location went dark, coinciding with Kyle's check-in at the cabin. Kyle's messages, lifted from her tablet, and his smug little "Bring the black dress" line, printed in 14-point Times New Roman. No embellishments, just the raw words of two people who thought they were safe because I was quiet. Hotel confirmations, not even hidden, just emails in her promotions tab, buried under fake skincare ads and influencer newsletters. Reservation confirmed. Moss Lake Cabin Retreat, Clearbrook Ridge. Check-in, Friday, 3 p.m. Check-out, Monday, noon. Then there was the selfie. This one still hit. She'd taken it just before sunset, standing in front of a lake I recognized from the time we camped there 10 years ago, back when we still did things that didn't involve separate calendars. She wore sunglasses, hair tousled, skin flushed. Beautiful in that curated, practiced way she thought only Kyle would see. But the sunglasses gave her away. In the reflection, 2 glasses of wine, a hand on her shoulder, and part of a phone screen, the top of a head that wasn't hers. She must have accidentally uploaded it to our shared cloud. Old habits. Or maybe her phone still auto-synced from back when we were trying again and she didn't want to lose our memories. Well, now she wouldn't. I printed the image, circled the reflection, labeled it Shared Cloud Upload, 4:48 p.m., Saturday. By 8:30, I had everything organized into a hard copy folder labeled simply Monday, black Sharpie, block letters. I placed it on the coffee table in the living room, right where she'd see it the moment she stepped inside. No dramatics, no post-its with broken hearts or teardrops on paper, just facts, a quiet reckoning. But the folder was only part of it, the bigger piece, the video. I set up my phone on a tripod, sat in the same chair I'd fixed the armrest on last month. She never noticed. I looked at the camera, hit record, and waited a beat. No dramatics, no tears, no raised voice. Just me. "Hi, Marlene," I began, calm, like I was giving a maintenance debrief. "You said you'd explain later. You won't need to. I have enough." I held up a printed copy of the GPS route, briefly. "This is your route on Friday, not Trenton. Northbound, past Route 82. You arrived at Clearbrook Ridge at 2:58 p.m. Another sheet. "This is Kyle's booking confirmation for the cabin. Same one he told me about when I was still dumb enough to think he looked up to me." I flipped to the next. "Here's the message about the black dress. That's not a metaphor, by the way. I saw it in the backseat of your car last week when I took out the trash." I kept going. Timeline, messages, location pings, screenshots. I didn't inject commentary, didn't call her names. That wasn't the point. Emotion muddies water. I wanted her to see everything in crystal clarity. I ended with the photo, her reflection, the ghost of Kyle in her glasses. "I don't think you meant to upload this," I said, "but I'm glad you did. I'll be keeping it. Not for blackmail. For closure." There was a long pause before the final line. "I replied to your message. That was the last kindness." I stopped the recording, watched it back once, no stammering, no blinks, just truth, the kind that hits harder than shouting ever could. Then I uploaded it to a private link. Unlisted, tracked, timestamped, copied the link onto a note card, tucked it inside the Monday folder right on top. By noon, I'd reset her tablet and left it unlocked, displaying the first photo in the evidence sequence. The tablet sat beside the folder on the coffee table. Then I walked around the house, room by room, looking at the things she'd touched that I hadn't noticed before. Her hairbrush, always left in the wrong drawer, her half-empty vitamin bottle in the cabinet next to mine, the candle she always lit when she knew she'd have to pretend she was in a better mood than she really was. I didn't take anything down, didn't box anything up, let her come home to it exactly as she left it. Except this time the silence wouldn't be passive, this time it would speak for me, and it would say everything she never expected me to figure out. At 6:12 p.m. my phone buzzed. I didn't move, just watched the screen light up from across the room like it was a lighthouse in the middle of a sea I no longer had any urge to swim. Marlene, hope your weekend's okay. Miss you. Miss you. Funny. The kind of phrase people send when they're full from steak and too drunk on red wine to remember what a lie tastes like. I didn't reply. Not because I couldn't, but because I wanted her to notice the silence. I wanted it to pulse. By 7:33 p.m., another one landed. Marlene, back early tomorrow. Can't wait to see you. A heart. I actually laughed at that one, audibly, like a guy watching a magician ruin a trick he already figured out. Still no reply. I sat on the porch for most of the evening. Just me and a weathered deck chair, a glass of bourbon sweating in my hand, and the kind of cold autumn air that tells your bones it's time to wake up. The house was still. Clean, it smelled like lemon wood polish in the past. Inside, everything was already in place, the folder, the tablet, the note card. At 9:02 p.m., Marlene, Daniel. At 10:41 p.m., Marlene, everything all right? You feeling okay? By 11:17 p.m., the mood shifted. Marlene, are you ignoring me? I put my phone screen down on the armrest. I wasn't savoring it. This wasn't vengeance. This was something else. Something quieter. It was the moment you stop trying to repair a broken tool and finally throw it in the bin. No anger, just the sound of the trash lid closing. At 11:59 p.m., because she has a flair for dramatics, her final message came in, like the last leaf falling from a tree that's been dead since September. Marlene, is something wrong? Not what's wrong. Is, like she didn't already know, like she hadn't already tied the rope and handed me the end with a smile. I stood, went inside, and opened my laptop. I uploaded the video to the private link again, not because it needed to be, but because I wanted the access time logged. I wanted the first click to be hers. No questions, no ambiguity, just her and the evidence, uninterrupted. Then I copied the link into a new message and typed the final caption. Me. Watch before you walk in. And I hit send. Then I powered the phone off. No notifications, no pinging guilt, no last-minute confessions or excuses to soften the landing. I went to the guest room. She always hated that mattress, said it hurt her back. I laid down on it anyway, arms crossed behind my head, and stared at the ceiling like I had when I was 19 and trying to sleep before my first deployment. Not nervous, just waiting, not for her, for the door to open in the morning, for her to see what truth looks like when it's printed on paper and played back on video, for the moment she realizes she was never ahead, only protected, until I stopped replying. 6:43 a.m. The front door opened like it always did. Quiet, slow, not quite creaky, but not exactly smooth. The way someone opens a door when they're pretending everything is normal. Her keys jingled as they scraped against the lock, like they hadn't just unlocked the end of something. I didn't get up. Footsteps. Careful. She wasn't talking yet. That was interesting. Then came the soft thump of her weekender bag landing on the hardwood. The same olive green one I'd bought her for our trip to the coast 3 summers ago. Said it made her feel chic. Now it looked heavy. Maybe it was the guilt. Morning, she called out, voice light, too light, like a kid testing the ice on a frozen lake. Then silence, because she turned the corner. The living room was bare. I'd stripped it down the night before, pushed the couch to the wall, unplugged the TV, folded the throw blanket she always left draped just so over the arm. No candles, no pictures, no distractions, just a single wooden chair in the middle of the room, and on that chair, a printed folder, thick and neat, her old tablet, screen dark, a manila envelope holding signed divorce papers. No theatrics, just clean signatures, notarized, filed. I'd used Natalie's connection to expedite the process. 2 weeks from now, it would be real. And a sticky note, dead center on the folder. I replied, "Now it's your turn." She stood there, not moving. I could hear the rustle of her coat as she looked around, trying to process what she was seeing. Her eyes probably scanned the chair, the folder, the tablet, looking for something softer, a loophole. And "I'm hurt, but we can work on this" gesture. But there wasn't one. She picked up the tablet. I'd left it open to the gallery. The first thing that lit up was her own face, the selfie from the lake, sunglasses and secrets. Then the screen darkened for a second before the video launched. I'd set it to autoplay the moment it was touched. She heard my voice. I wasn't in the room anymore. I was down the hallway, standing in the kitchen, out of view, but close enough to hear. Close enough to listen to her breathing change. "Hi, Marlene," I said in the video. Calm, unshaken, not sad. I imagined the moment she realized indeed it wasn't an old recording, that this wasn't a dramatic tantrum or a passive-aggressive gotcha. It was methodical, documented, dated. I could hear the shuffle of paper as she flipped open the folder. GPS logs, message transcripts, her hotel booking, Kyle's voice memos, the reflection of his phone in her sunglasses, everything she didn't bother to erase. She sat down slowly, not on the chair. I bet money on that, but probably on the floor. She never liked sitting in chairs without a throw pillow. The video kept going. Each page matched a moment in the footage. Evidence synced to confession, not hers, mine. My quiet confession that I saw everything, that I'd known for longer than she imagined, that her weekend getaway was never going to be a round trip. And then the line, "I replied to your message. That was the last kindness." The video ended. Silence. Not TV silence, not reading a book silence, but vacuum silence. The kind that hits when your life breaks in a way you can't just patch up with words or wine or whatever charm she thought still worked. I waited 5 full minutes before walking into the room. She looked up at me, eyes wide, not teary yet, just wide, as if she was still buffering. Her mouth opened. "Daniel, I raised a hand, not in anger, just to pause her, because this wasn't her turn to talk. Not yet. Now she had to sit with the truth, like I did, like I planned for her to. I was already gone before the second ring. I'd left through the back, as quiet as a prayer no one meant to say. The truck was packed, just essentials, no dramatic final glance, no long pause at the threshold. I didn't need a movie moment. I needed air that hadn't passed through her lungs. She stood frozen in the living room when I passed the kitchen window. She hadn't seen me yet, still stunned by the video. Still piecing together how long I must have known, how precise the evidence was, how meticulous the detachment felt. She thought she was the one making choices. By the time I hit the edge of town, her calls had started. First one, 7:13 a.m., ring, ring, voicemail. Second, 7:15, voicemail again. I'd already disabled my notifications, let the silence pile up in her call log like snow on a roof waiting to collapse. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, each one more frantic. At 7:24, the text began. "Marlene, Daniel, please, it's not what it looked like." Ah, the classic opener, the unofficial anthem of the caught. Not "I'm sorry," not "I messed up," no, just a desperate reach for plausible deniability, as if I'd misread the time-stamped hotel booking and the message that said, "Bring the black dress." 7:27 a.m. "Marlene, I was confused." Sure, confused about whose hands were on your waist, confused about what to pack for a weekend of dishonesty, confused about how deep the knife could go without making me bleed out loud. 7:32 a.m. "Marlene, don't do this. We can talk." That one almost made me laugh. Talk. Now she wanted words, but conversations require trust, and trust was buried under GPS logs and the smell of Kyle's cologne on her coat 2 weeks ago, the one she swore was just my new conditioner. 7:36 a.m. "Marlene, where are you?" That was the first honest question she'd sent me in months. I didn't answer it either. Her calls kept coming. 10, 15, 20, she switched numbers, called from her sister's phone, left voicemails that started with concern and dipped quickly into tears. One message, 7:51 a.m. "I can fix this." Fix what? My memory? The data logs? The hollow place where her wedding ring used to sit when she left it on the bathroom sink because it didn't match my outfit? No reply. Another text, 8:04 a.m. "I'll do anything. Just talk to me." That was when I turned the phone off. Because anything is the most meaningless word in a mouth that's already lied. Let me be clear, I wasn't punishing her. This wasn't revenge. This was rejection, total and complete, not just of her, but of the version of me who used to beg to be heard. The man who ignored his own instincts because her smile was easier to accept than the truth underneath it. She didn't get silence as punishment. She got it because she didn't earn anything else. I imagined her pacing the living room, replaying the video, scanning the folder again, trying to find a technicality to stand on, something she could twist, reinterpret, some page she could claim was fake or out of context, but there was no context left to save her. There was just my absence, and that I knew would haunt her more than any fight, more than any angry speech, because she was built for chaos, but she was not built for being ignored. The phone rang once. Just once. I almost didn't answer, thought about letting it buzz itself into nothing like the 53 voicemails Marlene had left by that point. But the name on the screen wasn't hers. Natalie. I picked up. Her voice was crisp, no nonsense, the way she always got when she'd just come off a courtroom file binge. "It's done," she said. "The lawyer submitted everything this morning." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She continued, knowing silence wasn't disinterest. "Expedited filing. County clerk will have it stamped by Thursday. If she contests, it delays distribution, not the separation." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "And Kyle?" I asked. I heard her smile without seeing it. "Flagged. Internal ethics file is attached to his pending application. Colonel Mercer listed a breach of character trust and professional misconduct. He won't be working with any contractor tied to the Air Force for a while." Silence again. Then she softened, just enough to slip past the armor. "You okay, Uncle D?" I looked out at the tree line. I was staying in a quiet cabin I'd rented 2 counties over, a place she didn't know about. A place he didn't know about. I wasn't hiding, I was decompressing. The sun hadn't risen yet, not fully, but the edges of the sky were softening, that cold, pale blue that promised light without offering warmth just yet. "I will be," I said. She paused. "You sure you don't want to write her back, even just to close it?" I looked down at the phone. Another voicemail notification had popped up during the call. That made 54. "I've said everything I needed to," I replied. "She just doesn't like the sound of the door closing." Natalie didn't press. She was sharp enough to know some wounds needed space, not sutures. "I'm proud of you," she said, before hanging up. Afterward, I sat back in the chair, let the quiet soak in, the kind of quiet that wasn't absence but relief. Not a void, but a room cleared of smoke. Then I opened the voicemail app, scrolled through it slowly. All of them from Marlene. Some short, some rambling, some whispered, some crying. One started with just silence and ended with a choked sob. Another tried to sound normal. "Hey, just seeing if you're okay. I'm worried." A few of them were full-on panicked, voice breaking, pacing audible. "Daniel, you're scaring me. Please, I don't know what to do. Just talk to me. Please." And finally, "I know I messed up. I know I did, but you can't just disappear. You can't just do this to me." That one made me laugh. Not loud, not bitter, just one dry breath of irony. Do this to her, as if I'd destroyed something instead of simply refusing to carry the carcass of it anymore. I didn't delete the messages. I didn't save them either. I just turned off the phone, got up, opened the drawer in the old pine desk, placed the phone inside, and locked it. No ceremony, no sad music, no dramatic montage, just the end of the noise. Because some endings don't come with fireworks or funerals. They come with stillness, a final deliberate act of not responding. And in that silence, I felt the closest thing to peace I'd known in years. No answers left to give, no guilt left to carry, just the calm of knowing I'd finally stopped waiting for a version of her that never existed. That evening, just as the sun dipped beneath the horizon and dragged the last bit of warmth out of the day, Marlene's phone buzzed. She was still sitting in the house, our house, though it didn't feel like hers anymore. The lights were all on, like illumination could somehow fill the emptiness. The wine glass on the counter hadn't been touched. Her suitcase, the one she dropped the moment she saw the chair and the folder, remained where she left it, like even it had decided it wasn't worth unpacking. Her eyes were red now, not from crying, that part had burned out around noon, but from staring too long at her reflection, trying to find the version of herself that could still talk her way out of this. The phone buzzed again. An email, no subject line, no sender name she recognized. Just a generic string of characters, one of those temporary burner accounts people use when they want to speak once and never again. She opened it, one sentence centered plain. You said you'd explain later, no need now. And 3 attachments. The first, a time-stamped image from a trail cam. Cabin driveway, Saturday, 3:07 p.m. Her car, pulled in backwards. License plate clearly visible. She always reversed into parking spots. Said it made her feel in control. The second, a photo taken from the same trail cam angle just minutes later. Blurry but undeniable. Kyle, his hands on her waist, her face tilted up, his mouth on her neck, her smile. That same goddamn necklace, my necklace, glinting like it was mocking her. She dropped the phone. It hit the tile with a dry, dull thud, bounced once and skidded against the cupboard. She didn't pick it up right away. She just stared at the floor, her chest rising in shallow bursts, like the truth had reached her lungs and was trying to crush them. But there was one more attachment, a PDF. She crawled to the phone and opened it. It was short, 2 pages. The first, a notarized transfer of property. Title, Moss Light Retreat, her weekend escape, their hideaway. Now his, signed and dated last week. Daniel had bought it, owned it, before she even arrived. He hadn't just found her, he'd anticipated her, been one step ahead, while she'd been busy twirling lies like spaghetti around a fork. It wasn't just a trail cam he'd used, it was his trail cam. She tried calling him again, hands shaking now. Blocked. She tried again from her sister's number. Blocked. She tried Natalie, went straight to voicemail. She opened the email and hit reply. Please, please, please talk to me. Send failed, no mailbox found. There would be no final word, no last tearful monologue, no scene on the porch in the rain, just silence. And the house that now felt colder than the cabin she thought she could hide in, because the real punishment wasn't losing Daniel. It was realizing he'd already grieved her long before she ever packed her bag. He didn't scream, he didn't burn it down. He simply made sure she couldn't follow. And when that final text came through, you said you'd explain later. No need now. She finally understood. He hadn't disappeared. He'd decided. And she was the last to know.